Hi, everybody. How are you? This is Sonal with SJS Events. Thanks so much for following us along. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Christine from RedBliss Designs. She's fantastic with invitations, and she's joining now. So let me see if I can get her on here. Here we go. I think she just requested me. If she can connect. I hope you guys are all staying safe and staying warm if you're in New York. Hi,
Hi, how are you, Sonal? Good to see you.
good to see you. The top of your head is getting cut off. See,
Oh,
there you go. How are you?
that's really good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We've worked together on so many projects, and you've done such beautiful designs for our brides, and you do all of these fantastic Christmas cards for us, which I get so many compliments on year after year after year. So I really wanted to introduce you to our audience that follows us, because I think that the work you do is so fantastic and everybody should know about it.
Yeah.
So I want to start off. I know this is going to be quick because everybody's like, oh, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And I'm like, I got to talk really fast, right? But I wanted to ask you, how did you get started in this industry doing invitations? What's your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It all started because I couldn't find what I wanted for myself. It was, one of those classic situations where, and this was about 20 years ago. I've been married about 20 years now, and just everything came out of a book, and that just wasn't
I
who I.
remember that.
Yeah,
You
especially.
flip through the book and you're like, I want this, and I want this font, and I want this ribbon, and I want this, and
And
that's
that
your invitation.
Right, right, and that didn't work for me. So that's how it began, and it started in my living room, and it started with calling folks, in the New York area, different planners, and just slowly, slowly, slowly building up to the business we have now, which is pretty incredible. I never thought I could do this for a living, so to be able to do it for a living is amazing.
You chased your dreams, and here you are. What
Yeah.
that's fun. I love things like that. But the thing that's interesting, when I first met you, you have certain products that are only specific to your company, Red Bliss Design. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I was fascinated when I met you and saw everything that your company can do. But then I was like, whoa, why doesn't this person do it? Or why doesn't this invitation? And then you're like, no, this is only for us. This is something so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. We've always been known to innovate. We always want to be pushing boundaries and trying new things. And part of that exploration has we've developed something called chroma, which is a unique material to us, and we use it a lot on invitations. Like this is an example of this. It's just a beautiful material that can really add a lot of luxury and glam to an invitation design.
So
And
that's chroma with like what? Laser cut design?
laser cut floral garden. This was for a couple. This was actually
Beautiful.
a date for a couple in Germany, and their invitation
Wow.
on the back, which was it's very thick, really pretty. But this really just elevated the whole look for them. It gave them a sense too of something that they had never seen before, guests hadn't experienced before, and that was important to them. They wanted it to be memorable. And what I think is fun about this is you can display this and keep this just as it
It's
is.
gorgeous.
Yeah, so it extends beyond the life of its just original purpose, which is always something we think about.
I mean, that invitation to me, when I look at it, it's so elegant and simple, but you could tell that someone put a lot of thought behind it. It's not cookie cutter. And, when our brides come to us, like, obviously that's one of the biggest things, right? I want everything to be unique, different, unique, different. We say it all the time. We hear it all the time. And I think that, coming to someone like yourself to design invitations and stationery, et cetera, I think that that makes such a huge impact, because I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with the design work, and then also bringing in these unique features to someone's invitation. So that kind of leads me to my next question. Why don't we talk a little bit about branding? Because, you know, 10 years ago, I've been doing this for a really, really long time, but 10 years ago, people were like, okay, well, my dress needs to match the decor, and then the cake needs to match this, and then when it comes to their invite, it's like nothing matches this invite, and then you and I talked about this concept of branding a wedding and how you can brand it. And I was like, whoa, that is amazing, because that takes a lot of the work away from me that I have to sit there and come up with all these concepts. Tell me how you do the branding for weddings.
Yeah, it really, when we approach an invitation design, it all has to do with self-expression for the couple. So it's really listening and understanding who they are and how we can then weave their story into every element. And it starts with the invitation, and oftentimes those elements then will transcend into pieces for the actual decor. It might look into tabletop. I mean, just like one example, this was something as simple as like a seal on an envelope. So this was a wood seal that was laser cut. This
Awesome.
tree had meaning to this couple. And then what was interesting about this is then that translated into a charger that was a wood
Oh, I love it.
event. So I think when you engage with a custom designer from the very beginning, these pieces then can tell your story and be woven throughout, because we can help you create these extra special pieces from the very beginning to the very end, from the concept to the mailbox to the table. It's a special journey that we go on together with every couple we partner with.
And I think it's so important because, when I think that the sequence should be you hire a planner, you kind of do photo, video, DJ, band. And then when we start working on invitations and I start talking to our couples about branding, it's such a new concept for them, or it's such a new concept for their parents.
Mm-hmm.
But then when, like what you just held up and how you took this, translated it to their invitation, and then this beautiful charger, and then menu cards, thank you letters. I mean, there's so many things that can be branded, and it's not just a logo that you create. Because sometimes when I mention branding, people are like, oh, we already have our logo, and I'm like, no, it's not just about your logo. It's about how some of these elements and pieces that are the chroma that you mentioned, or wood design, like how that all kind of plays together. And it takes a lot of work away from me having to know everything. If I can turn someone over to you and be like, listen, talk to her and she'll explain everything, which I think is just amazing. So this is a touchy subject. Go ahead.
Can I add one little thing to that?
Sure.
What you said too about logos, everything doesn't have to be matchy. I think that's another very important thing to think about when you take your invitation and think about how those design elements will move beyond it. Like in this case, this was a tree. Then when we brought in, this piece, it was landscape. It wasn't like we took that same exact pattern and brought it into this piece. The story continued, but what was interesting is that the materials were the same. We used wood in the same way. So the brand, it goes definitely, like you said, goes beyond the logo, and it can go from materials to graphics to so many other places. So,
of course. Yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless when it comes to working with someone who can custom design things. And I think that that's so much better when you want unique and different than just saying, hey, here's a website I'm going to go on and go pick this stuff. I think it's, any kind of wedding that you're doing, any event, I think that it has to be so personalized to who you are as an individual or who you are as a couple. And I think part of this, the whole journey is starting with the invitations. One of the touchy topics that I want to talk to you about is pricing, right? So I want to kind of put this out there. And when we talk to our brides, or when we talk to parents, let's just say, right? And I put down on their budget, $60 an invitation. Like, people are like, wait, what's going on? Why would an invitation cost 60 or 40 or 75 or $100? Like, they literally have a heart attack. And I try to really explain to our clients that, if you go to a papyrus, there's cards there for $7, $8, $9, $10, $11, right? These are mass produced. They're in every papyrus store or every Hallmark store, whatever you want to call it, right? And now you're going to do your wedding invitation, and this is a multiple day affair, custom invitations, pockets, ribbons, what have you. And they want to pay like $12 for it. And I'm like, that just doesn't exist anymore.
right.
Like, it really doesn't exist, right? I mean, like when we order Christmas cards from you, sometimes I'm paying like $19 a Christmas card, and it's worth it because of the reaction that we get when people get this, right? I mean, it's not just about wishing them or, saying Merry Christmas. It's about the impact that you have when someone opens this and does different things. Can you talk to me a little bit about cost?
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes what's hard to keep in mind is that when we provide pricing, it not just involves the cost of the paper and the printing. And I think a lot of times people are like, how can it cost so much to print a card? Or how can it cost so much for a piece of paper? And really what you're paying for is all the behind the scenes. You're paying for the expertise of someone to craft your story. And that is where the real bulk of the cost kind of ends up going, is that you've hired us to bring it all to life. And now more than ever, we're sending out a piece that to all of your guests. And now more than ever, some of those guests might not even be able to come to your wedding because of
Correct.
living in at the moment. So now this is a keepsake that lives beyond and serves even a greater purpose than it has before. So when you think about cost, like for example, for us, our pricing can start around $40 to $45 per invitation because we put so many hours into creating that one of a kind experience for you and for the guests that are going to receive them. So, and then, yes, it can just go from there depending on the options and the things that you choose. I mean, so much of it is understanding what the parameters are for the bride and groom, and then
Yeah.
with them and partnering them about what's really important, what's a nice to have, what's a must have, what's, let's toss that piece out, nobody cares. So we really collaborate to understand and make sure we end up in a really good place together.
Correct. And I think that there's a big difference between custom and luxury and something that is just picked off of like a website, right? That whole feel good portion of designing and creating, and this is your wedding. You don't get all of that by just being online and trying to do different things online. And but you said, $40, $45. These are standard normal prices for the, wedding world in our industry, right? So I just don't really want people to be shocked when we put that on their budget. And then when we talk about invitations and it's like, okay, but I need someone to put it all together and assemble and go mail it out and go do this. And then I want the custom stamp of this. Okay, so here we go. Like, this is where we started, and now you want Christine to, assemble. Now you want Christine to take it to the post office. Now you want Christine, like, obviously there's a charge for all of the labor that's involved. And, I always tell our couples, like, you can try to do all this yourself, right? But then there are times that when we work with you, the invitations are so intricately put together. It's not like you can just ship them out in a box to the couple and say, oh, here, you deal with it, right? There's just no way to do that.
No, absolutely. We really love, I mean, we are full service and we love to see it from concept to mailbox, as we call it. We really want to make sure that that piece that we've worked so hard with you to get just perfect arrives the way it's supposed to arrive. And it just takes the stress out of it for the couple, really. I mean, we handle the guest list. We work the post office or FedEx now in some cases. It's just taken care of. It's just something you don't even have to think about. And that's our goal. We just want to make it so fun because this is the beginning.
Correct.
This very beginning of the journey. And so we really want it to be a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, I always say if there's someone who could take your stress away from doing all of these different tasks, that's really like what I do as a wedding planner, what you do as a stationary person. I mean, I think that it makes such a huge difference. Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing differently during this pandemic and, with invitations and what couples are doing.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So one thing now that is a must-have in just about every invitation suite we're preparing is basically, I haven't thought of a sexy word for it, but just like a credit card, basically.
Yeah.
And it's people really want to communicate to their guests, and guests really want to know what precautions, what things you're doing to ensure.
Very true.
And what is Plan B? Oh, sorry, what is Plan B?
Don't you just love doing things from home where, like, my screaming kid comes in and I'm like, no, I'm on a scroll.
Exactly. And so yeah, it's really I lost my train of thought there for a second. So making sure that people feel really comfortable, because you want them to know what you're going to do in advance. They want them to know where they can get updates really quickly and effectively. And you might have a plan A and a plan B, and you need to communicate that well. So
Yeah.
now a staple in just about every invitation that we send out for folks. It's important. So
He or she is excited about being on this live. I'll tell you that much. What are you doing about postponements? And with, like, let's say, a lot of our brides are, I don't want to work on my invitations because what if this gets postponed? And then they keep like postponing working on these invites. But I'm like, if you're not going to postpone, we still need to, like, there's this fine line between waiting enough time and waiting too long, and then, dealing with postponements. How have you been doing that?
yeah, we really encourage, because what doesn't change in this whole process is your story and how we're going to share that with folks. So
Yeah.
we really want to let's keep the process moving. And if at the end of the day you end up changing, maybe the wedding now is going to be a fall affair instead of a spring affair, maybe all we're doing is tweaking some color choices at that point. So we really encourage you to keep things moving forward so that when you're ready, because so much of it can be a little bit last minute right now, when you're ready, we're ready and we can move quickly together. But
Yeah.
let's take the time while we can to craft your, like as you were saying, your branding, your story, and bring all that and have it ready to go. So it can just boom, go out the door, because you might just be making tweaks at that point.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And my last question to you, and I'm going over my 10 minutes here already, but can you talk to me a little bit about timeline and lead time? I mean, I think that a lot of brides think, okay, I'm going to approve the invitation. The next day they're at my house or they're getting mailed out. It doesn't work like that, right? Like typically we give them a huge lead time for invitations, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we definitely love to have like a 4 to 8 week window for the design process. The more time we have, the more we can get into a lot of really fun details together. And it just allows that process to go smoothly and comfortably. But once you approve, we want another 4 to 6 weeks to produce it, especially if we
Yeah.
maybe a little different and not 100% just a printed card. We've, created something like, in this case, we designed this beautiful like wood tray that the invitation,
Wow.
and then they're layered cards that pop out. So you just want to have enough time to produce all of that. So all told, if you give yourself 3 to 4 months, that's a
Yeah.
nice, comfortable window for everyone. So it can be done faster, but more.
I try to push my clients for like 5 to 6 months, just so they can kind
Right.
of take a breather and it's not like invitation, invitation, invitation. But yeah,
Love
thank you so much for being on this live with us. There's so many other questions that I think are very relevant, but we'll have to do this again and do like a part two to this and see how it goes.
Yeah, I would love it. Thank you for having me.
You're where in Boston right now, or where are you?
Outside of Boston. So we're in our studio in New Hampshire right now, but we also have a showroom in Manhattan, which we hope to get back to soon.
I know, right? That would be, well, hit me up when you're here. I would love to see you again. Thank you so much for being on this live and stay safe. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. That was Red Bliss. Now I'm trying to figure out how I end this particular live. Let's